Hey guys, done a whole bunch of videos this weekend about my cues, and I kind of want to do something about pool again. You know, I guess I did one yesterday about this weird ass thing I've been working on to see if it makes any sense. But this time I want to talk about. I thought I made this video. I guess I haven't. This is a question I've been kind of grappling with almost for as long as I've been playing. Certainly I've been grappling with it since I started banking. And doubly certainly since I got LASIK. I've mentioned a million times, I got LASIK in this eye so I can see farsighted. This eye is now farsighted. This eye hasn't been touched, it's still nearsighted. And I used to have a bit of an overlap where now between 3 and 6 feet I could see everything just fine. I don't have that overlap anymore as I've gotten older. So it really only made the problem potentially worse, or the question a little bit more pressing. And what it is I would imagine just about every pool player maybe has asked himself this kind of question at one time or another. I hope I'm not the only weirdo that does stuff like this. So let's just do a regular shot for now. The most accurate way I always feel like I am the absolute most accurate, like if I'm just going to shoot this 13 straight in the side, right? Is all the way down on the cue. You know, like a snooker player or an awful lot of the top players, all the way down on the cue. And that, yeah, I'm lined up, I'm aiming pretty accurately. But I've always wondered if being down that low, well, I know it's doing some things. One of the things it's doing is I can't see the angle as well, especially with my eyes the way they are. I don't have very good 3D perception to begin with. When I'm all the way down here, it almost looks, this is all just one 2D picture. It may as well be a photograph right in front of my face. There's no depth. Of course, if I'm lined up correctly up here before I get down, it shouldn't be that big of a deal. But it's always something that's kind of bothering me, that I think, well, gee, I hope I got the right angle. Well, you know, when I was young and had good binocular vision and all that, I could be down here and I could confirm, yeah, it looks good. But now I can't do that anymore. I kind of have to trust my earlier self from when I was standing up and trust that I went down correctly and all that. That's one of the issues that I have with being down all the way on the cue. The other issue I've had, and it's come up more as I've gotten older and gained weight, is, you know, it's always seemed to me like I'm going to be constricting myself a little bit. The further down I am, the more like scrunched in I am or whatever. And maybe a part of me is having to wrap around my body a little bit. So maybe I'm not stroking straight anymore. But yeah, it's accurate, as long as I did everything right up here. I'm not 100% sure it's still accurate once I get bent down, but if I trust that fact, yeah, it's still accurate. I bent down correctly. Then I have to worry about, am I stroking straight, or am I too constricted? Is everything too constricted in here just by necessity? My body I'm getting in my own way. I've always wondered about that, and I see that as two problems that I definitely have. One caused by being old and having the LASIK, and the other one just by, you know, being old and gaining the weight. The alternative to being all the way down on the cue stick would be being up higher. And I'm not talking about being up like this. I think that the really old timers that would be up this high, that they couldn't bend over, because if they did, they'd never get back up. I'm talking about like Minnesota Fats in his old age, that type of deal. He would be like this. But what I'm talking about is, for me, 4 or 5 inches above the cue. It feels like about a foot when I do it, but I look at it on the footage, and it's no longer a foot. It's not a foot. It's whatever that is. Instead of being down here, it's just up a little bit higher. All the worry that I had about, my body being in its own way, that goes away. I don't feel constricted at all when I'm up off the cue. But neither do I feel as accurate. If I'm down here, I can see the shot line because the cue's right there in front of me. I can see if I'm in alignment for the contact point that I want to hit, or the overlap that I'm going for, or whatever I'm going for. I can see all that stuff right here below my right eye, and everything's great. If I'm up a little bit, I could be off. Pool is a game of millimeters. I could think I'm perfectly straight in, lined up on this 14, but if I try to base it all on this, I could be off a millimeter this way and miss the shot, or a millimeter this way and miss the shot. Not because I had a goofy stroke or the wrong longest or whatever, but because I wasn't lined up right in the first place. So that is a problem that I have with being up a little bit more off the cue. I solved the problem of constricting myself and being in my own way, but I add the problem of maybe I'm not in alignment. Maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm just close. The other problem that I have with being all the way down, like I talked about, I get a 2D perspective because of my vision. If I'm up off the cue, even a little bit, I don't have that anymore. I can see the angles and such. Need angles for banks. I've probably mentioned that before. You need to be able to see the angles. And I can see them when I'm up here. I can see them, I don't want to say just fine, because if I saw them just fine all the time, well, y'all would have heard of me before instead of just stumbling across me in YouTube. When I'm up off the cue a little bit, I just have to worry about that alignment. Am I correct? Because it can look right. It can look like I'm good. But then if I miss the shot, then I might go, well, crap, I wasn't good at all. I just thought I was. And this Catch-22 type thing is something that's been, I've been questioning it for as long as I've been playing pool. And it's only gotten worse as I've gotten older and had the LASIK and gain weight and stuff like that. Am I better off staying up off the cue a little bit where I can see the angles and where I'm not constricted, but I may not be on the shot line exactly perfectly? I'm better off doing that, or getting all the way down on the cue like I did for a million years, and not being able to get the 2D or the 3D vision that I want, especially for banking, seeing the angles and stuff like that, and worrying about my body getting in its own way. Is it 6 of one, half dozen of the other? It's definitely a catch-22 situation for me, and I've gone back and forth several times. There have been a lot of days where I can be up off the cue the way I want, and balls are going just great. There will be days where that happens, and as soon as something like that happens, my ego, whatever, hollers at me and says, "Damn it, David, if you would have gotten down on the shot line, then you would have made the one." And, my ego is probably right in that case. But I might have missed a one for some other reason, for not seeing the angle correctly. Especially playing banks. A lot of playing banks is by feel and stuff, and it's a lot of it's like in the moment. There may be little micro adjustments that are happening. My inner pool player is making little micro adjustments when I shoot. Definitely like backhand English and stuff like that. I don't know. And I'm not even asking, for advice. I am curious to see anybody else has thought about this kind of stuff and did they pick one over the other, and why? Or did they, find a compromise? I remember for a while there, I would come up and down a lot, to make sure I kept seeing that 3D perspective as much as I could, or saw the angle as much as I could. And then when I would go to shoot, then I would go all the way down. I'd do it like that. I would do that a lot. But A, this looks kind of stupid, and B, you don't really need a B when something looks that stupid. But that's what I used to do, because I knew I had lost when I had the LASIK. Before I had the LASIK, well, both of the eyes were, this eye was better. They were both, I could see really good out to 5 or 6 feet. And then everything got really blurry. But I got pretty decent at aiming at blurry balls. So if I wouldn't see a 2 ball, I would see a blue blob. Maybe 2 or 3 2 balls in there, all kind of overlapping. And I got pretty good at aiming at that. But after I had the surgery, and as I've gotten older, it doesn't work as well anymore for me. I like being able to see the actual ball, and now I can out this eye. I look at the 15 from here, I see a 15. If I look at it out my left eye, I see a white and maroon dandelion, basically. The dandelion, white dandelion things. That's kind of what I see. Yeah, that's pretty bad. But oh well. So this I'm going to cut to 13, and just like what I'm talking about here, I have a choice. If I find my angle correctly up here, and I come down correctly, then I can come all the way down and shoot the shot in. But if I didn't come down correctly, I had no way of knowing it. I had no way for any of those like macro adjustments I was talking about. I had no way of going, well shit, I'm wrong, and stand back up and do it again. No way of knowing to do it. I just had to trust being up here. Conversely, if I stay up off the cue, I go, am I getting alignment and all that correctly? Now I have to trust that my head is in the proper alignment with my cue. When it's down here, guess what? It is. But up here, it could be off a little bit. And that could be enough to make me miss. Just like that. Didn't do that for dramatic effect, just missed. Sometimes that happens. Try that again. So every time I miss when I'm up off the cue, I tend to say, okay, my head and my cue stick are not in the proper alignment that they should be in. Every time I miss when I'm up off the cue a little bit. Every time I miss when I'm down on the shot, I usually blame my stroke not being straight because I have to wrap around myself. I'm somehow constricting myself. That's usually what I blame. But I don't know. I don't want those things for sure. I just know that sometimes I miss and it annoys me, and I think, well, hell, I should have stood up a little higher, or oh hell, I should have been down a little lower, one or the other. One of the many things that drives me crazy is trying to figure out what is the solution to this problem, this question, this choice that I have and I've had for a long time, and I don't know what the answer is. I'm curious to see what answer anyone else may have come up with if they've had the same kind of thing. I know that the things I've described are going to happen to people. People's bodies are going to get in their way. People's eyes are going to get messed up whether they have surgery or not. You're going to be more accurate when you're down on the cue, as long as you were accurate to begin with before you started bending down and you bend down correctly. But are you going to be able to stroke straight? And then if you're up a little bit higher, are you in alignment with your cue stick the way you think you are? Sure, you can see angles great, but if you weren't lined up with your cue stick the way you think you should be, you're probably not going to make a shot anyway. I don't know. This is one of my ongoing questions and concerns that I have about myself. Bye, guys.